I imagine an oak tree, such a powerful spiritual being, like this powerful oak tree, this old oak. But as it grows, there's so much friction in its entirety as it slowly grows. And I imagine that at times, if this being felt in the same way that a human feels, there would be discomfort in letting go. And I know that there is suffering and there is discomfort. And then there's relief as the surrendering transcends the suffering, as the letting go, as my fingers and my hands open, as they open and they relax, they stop holding something. They stop searching for that ground to give me orientation, that coarse Cormac McCarthy like ground. They go limp and they let go and they open to the light of creation.
Into the fire, here we go. Into the fire, head to toe. Into the fire, to be seen. Into the fire, to
Hello, this is Mark A. Lewis. This is the Sacred Village podcast. I had a topic. I had an idea that came to me while I was at my desk, and I wanted to put that into a podcast form. I wanted to share that. I wanted to explore that, and I wanted to do that in a way that was spontaneous. And in the castaway format, which is what this podcast is. And when I started to record it, I realized that I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember. I can remember an aspect of it, an important aspect of it, in terms of my relationship with a particular elder. His lineage, he's half Scottish and half Blackfoot, and he asks to not mention his name when sharing stories. And I was going to share not a story about him, but I was going to share something about my relationship with him. And it feels quite important or synchronistic that I can't remember, because I do want these variations of the podcast format to remain spontaneous. And so here I am. I think this applies. I mean, it's my rules, so I can make adjustments as I go along. But there's something about having dogma, having restrictions, having rules that can that can create specificity around the space or area that one works within. So Dogma 95. I don't know if any people out there remember or are familiar with this. These rules that were created by Lars von Trier. It was a particular set of rules for filmmakers to work within. And the premise behind that is that within that space of being specific and having a container to work within, that there's also a freedom that comes with that, because the freedom to work without barriers can be very overwhelming. And it can be too general, and it can be too, it can allow for too many possibilities that will ultimately create a feeling of an entropy, of inertia for an individual, whether they're working in a space as an artist or as a human being in general. I do find this very fascinating around narratives and the things that create orientation for us in the form of rules, in the form of structure. This is a very interesting time to be exploring rules and structure or dogma, because, we are all, us adults, people who are exploring the nature of personal freedom, exploring the nature of personal expression. We are aware of the harm and the limitations created by dogma, of rules, of structure. We don't trust these aspects of being, these conditions created by individuals and imposed on other individuals. We don't trust that these will be in our best intentions, whether they come from public policy, governmental policy, governmental institutions, frameworks within society, whether they are cultural expectations of behavior that stem from perhaps the Victorian era or from Catholicism or from aspects of Christianity or Judaism. We've been wounded by many of these conditions, of these rules, as they are handled by human beings and enforced on others and enforced upon us as children. But we need coherence, and to be limitless, it can foster inertia of just lying in bed in depression, not knowing what to do. It can also, on the other hand, foster arrogance and entitlement. If we resist any rules or any conditions, we are playing God. We are living out a life of entitlement, entitled to be free. Is that something that is our birthright? Well, it depends. It depends on how you define freedom. What is freedom? Is freedom to do whatever we want? What is want? Let's define what it means to want something, to desire something. Do we take whatever we want? Do we violently oppress another person and take their personal freedom away because it satisfies us? Or do we quietly, subversively, even unconsciously and slowly and in a manipulative, unconsciously calculating way, if that's even possible? It is possible. It is possible to not know that we are doing something that is calculating and manipulative if we believe that the act of being calculating and manipulative is justified. And in order to create a narrative that allows us to feel justified in behaving this way, in quietly oppressing somebody else, keeping them silent, whether it's a partner or a friend or an employee, subtle means of behavior that threaten the other person, and the other person in this culture, in the way we live, unless we are physically oppressing them, they also have a choice. And so is it oppressive to act in a manipulative, calculating way? Our behavior and our choice of words, they keep a person from behaving this way or that, to keep them silent, to keep them saying good things about us without checking in with themselves. Are we oppressing them? What is oppressing them? Because unless we're physically oppressing them, isn't it their choice to surrender to this? Do they have a choice? Is there conditioning from their upbringing? Does that conditioning leave them unable to make a choice? And then if we, the manipulator, are controlling this person and we don't know that that's what's happening, are we oppressing them? If we truly believe that we need to keep this person, need to keep their voice repressed, we need to guide them, we need to channel them in Machiavellian ways, if we believe that these acts, that these choices are necessary, because if we don't do that, we will be unsafe, and that person will not be in alignment with the way they should be. And our idea of should, we believe that in this context, in this narrative that I'm sharing. We believe that this is important. And we believe this because this is what we've learned from our upbringing, whether you're a male or a female in a relationship. And maybe some of you keyed on to this, to where I was going with this and what I was thinking. In my mind, seeing many examples in my life, lived experience in relationship, but also witnessing others in relationship, the male and female dynamic, the one person, a person of one gender, not trusting an individual of another gender because of their experience with other people of that gender, with their experience of a mythology that is um, woven around us, woven into our way of seeing the world, woven into our narrative, for good or bad, for better or worse. This is life at this time on this planet. These woven narratives, this relationship with life force, with living, with being, the relationship between this life force and our mind and the narratives that our mind weaves and gravitates to and uses to help us, understand, to help us have coherence. And so we go back to this notion of Dogma 95. What are those rules, Lars von Trier? What did you make? Breaking the Waves, Dancer in the Dark. There's these beautiful films that came out of this movement. I was going to say Melancholia, but that's post-Dogma 95. There was an ascension from those limitations. Dogville, another ascension and descension. He rose above those limitations, or let's not say rose above. He chose to transcend those limitations, and then he put these other limitations on himself. He created more limitations in order to thrive in this landscape. And so, how do we know which limitations to trust? How do we know which way to go in this landscape? How many limitations can we put on ourselves consciously without getting lost, without believing that these limitations are not just good for us, but also good for our partner, our brother, our sister, our neighbor, our whole community, our whole country? At what point do we begin to believe that what works for us, for our nervous system, for our trauma, and no, that's not a conscious thing? I mean, if it becomes a conscious thing, it enters another vibration, and it enters another way of being, of letting. It expands the bandwidth of higher being, of consciousness, of love, of light, from creation. As we become more and more aware, and as we transcend the limitations that we put on ourselves, that are a result of our belief that the way we behave, the way we orientate, and the limitations and dogma and structure and narratives that we use to create a container for the ability to be coherent, to be able to get up in the morning and to know what to do and to know how to behave. When we begin to see what these constructs are, we can surrender to something bigger. We can allow something more luminous, more full, more complete, more, I want to say truthful, but it's more than truthful. It's just truth coming into us. And yet these states of knowing and being and presence, we can only be in that space for so long unless we choose to retreat and sit on the hill or go to a monastery or a place of meditation and just be one with creation, whether it's in the light of the sun or the cave of the mountains of Nepal or Tibet or wherever it is that where we retreat and we're meditating and where we're being in that consciousness and expansion all the time. We can't be there. We can't be that way as human beings that want to be with each other and that want to live a life with others, with children, with animals, with nature. We want to exist. We want to coexist. And so we have to come back down. We have to get back into the world. And so what happens after that expansion? Well, we readjust. How do we slither through with having just shed a layer of skin, raw and tender, back into our world, not knowing what we've shed. We don't know. We can't know what we've shed. We don't know. It's not us to know. We just give ourselves over to this light of God, to this light of creation, and we transform. We give something up. We give something up. We give away an identity, a construct, or identities, constructs, plural, in that moment, in that connection with the gods, with God, with Christ, with whoever it is that we are connecting with in that world beyond our world, to inform us, to lift us, to transcend us, to transform us. We give ourselves over to that and we let something go, whether it's in grief or a wailing, uh, a tender tear, crying quietly, um, shuddering, shaking, like a deer, shuddering, letting go of a shock, of a trauma. There's many ways for us to purge by throwing up, vomiting, being hysterical, letting loose in some way that's not us, or so we think, but it's just a letting go of all the trappings, all the conditionings of our body, of our being, of our mind, of our psyche, the narratives, everything, purging, letting it all go, only to go back in, to reemerge, to reconnect slowly, and to rediscover ourselves as slightly transformed, not completely. And maybe this happens. Um, maybe we're a guru, walking the world as an ordinary person one day, and then touched by God and transformed for the rest of our lives. Eckhart Tolle apparently had this happen to him. I don't know what that experience is like. For me, it's very gradual. I want to get into this world of Cormac McCarthy. It's like his world is not spiritual, in my opinion. So the metaphor, the analogy, it doesn't work entirely, but that experience of one of his novels, The Road and Blood Meridian, they bring you through the dirt as though like the fingernails being drawn along the hardened, caked into solid of mud and sand, and under your fingernails, and just feeling the coarseness, feeling the impenetrable earth under your finger. Nothing that that not like sand where you sink and that you have that satisfying feeling, but it hurts. It's painful. It begins to remove the texture of skin from your fingertips, and you're connecting to that raw, solid aspect of being. And this is kind of partly my experience in the spiritual realm of feeling the coarseness and the friction of growth, of letting go. I imagine an oak tree, is such a powerful spiritual being, like this powerful oak tree, this old oak. But as it grows, there's so much friction in its entirety as it slowly grows. And I imagine that at times, if this being felt in the same way that a human feels, there would be discomfort in letting go. And I know that there is suffering and there is discomfort in the friction of my being as I transcend the human design, the matter of being a human being on a cellular level, on a psychological level, as that psychological connects to emotional, connects to the physical, as there are these ultimately inseparable aspects that we have compartmentalized, ultimately as they all are entwined together. And as there's growth within, and at the core, there is suffering and there is pain, and then there's relief as the surrendering transcends the suffering, as the letting go, as my fingers and my hands open, as they open and they relax, they stop holding something, they stop searching for that ground to give me orientation, that coarse Cormac McCarthy like ground. They go limp, and they let go, and they open to the light of creation, and that transmission happens, and then I go back into earth with that that spiritual experience, having had that spiritual experience, having had that connection with the divine, I go back to my life, and I just continue to live. And but I notice over time, after the time of reorientation, which is difficult because I don't know who I've become. I don't know yet. So I'm searching for some sense of coherence, of understanding. What do I believe now? How do I act? How do I behave? Where's my awareness when my nervous system begins to elevate, when I get to a state of overwhelm, or if I feel that abandonment in my belly, that pain in my being? Where am I at now with that? What is my awareness of that today, in this moment, after having had that ceremonial experience? I don't know, and it changes moment by moment as I live my life, as I integrate the experience of connection on the highest level in my heart, integrate the experience of heart expansion, uh, heart of surgery from a divine place of nurturing, healing. There I am, and I look for ways of being again. I look for signifiers. I look for labels, things that help me remember this is a Oregon grape. This is a bison. This is a mushroom. This is a chair. This is a table. This is a person. These are feelings. This is anger. This is sadness. This is the texture of my skin, the texture of my partner's skin, the feeling of my hand in her hair, the feeling of holding our infant, holding him close, uh, connecting with my 11-year-old, bringing him close, talking to him, seeing that he's changing also, re-identifying who he is to me in my heart, learning that my identification of him is not cerebral. It is experiential. It is emotional. It is ethereal, but it is feeling. It is a feeling experience. It is a feeling experience that has feeling in different parts of my body and more. As feeling of glimpses of visuals of an extension of feeling that come in visuals that are very difficult to articulate, to explain, to communicate, but they're there and they have resonance and they have meaning. They have deep meaning because they take me back. They take me back to that ceremonial experience of communication, of connection with that wisdom, with those teachings, with that higher state of being, higher self, yes, higher states of being, yes, gods, yes, God, yes, all those things, they take me back to those different states of being. And even these words now of God, God's spirit, self, higher states of consciousness, ideas, words, sounds, what do they mean? What do I believe they mean? What do they mean to me in my body? And how has that changed since my last surrendering? Is it different? Is it maybe a little bit lighter? Do I hold those ideas, the constructs that are behind those thoughts, those transmissions? Do I hold them do I hold them more loosely? Do I allow my hands and my fingers to open a little bit wider? Do I feel them closing a little bit too, of wanting that attachment, wanting to identify with those constructs? Yeah. Do I allow that? Yeah. Do I see that it's a little bit looser than the time before? Yes. All of those things, that explosion of like the Big Bang, explosion of expansion and contraction all at once. The ether, the unknown, the physical, the spiritual, the surrendering, the light of God, the light of self, the light of Chat GPT. My goodness, I only recently discovered AI in its tangible form in terms of opening up the app and having a discussion. And I have ideas about this thing that I look forward to sharing, and I'm not going to do that today. but this expansion of existence, of being and transcending the limitations that we put on ourselves. So then when the wounded person comes into my life and they bring their narrative of, of not trusting, certain things that I remind them of from their past, when they bring those projections and they try to regain some sense of control and empowerment within themselves, a sense of control and empowerment within themselves by attempting to put limitations on how I show up. I'm not susceptible to that. I have choice. I can be potentially abandoned by this person. And through a liberation of choice, I can allow myself to be abandoned by this person and to still be in integrity, to still be in my heart, to still be in connection with God, and to realize that that person is not oppressing me. That person is doing nothing to me because I am free and I have choice. They are not stepping on me. They are not tying me up. They're not putting me in a cage and feeding me scraps. They're not doing that at all. They're showing up in the best way that they know, in the best way that they know. And they may believe that I'm trying to create limitations for them by putting up boundaries for myself. And they may be a liberated human being also. I don't know. I can't explore their psyche the way that they can. I can speculate, but ultimately I can only know about my own ability to choose, my own relationship with choice and with what I determine to be freedom, which is the freedom to be in my heart in whatever way that, in whatever variation of existence that means and implies. And quite often it's not what I want and it's not what I desire on that human level. But it is what I want and what I desire in my heart, and that part of me that operates as a beacon that connects me to the divine, that connects me to existence, connects me to the greater good. Because the greater good, in my opinion, is not different for me or anybody else. The greater good for me, if it truly is the greater good as I step into my choice, is not a disservice and out of alignment for anybody else. If they feel dissonance from that, but I'm truly in my heart and in alignment and being authentic, it is still in their higher good. And vice versa. If somebody does something that triggers me, that I feel disorientated by, it's still in my higher good if that person is in their heart. And if they're not, it's not going to feel good in my heart. And it's going to be a no, and it's going to be a boundary, and it's going to be moving away or saying something or doing something or vocalizing or doing nothing and just moving on, without oppression, without the oppression to take that step in that direction or this direction. Very few of us have that oppression. Those that do, that's not good. We need to help those people. We need to protect those people, in my opinion. That's important to protect the people who are suffering from experiences that are legitimately oppressive. But generally, it's just trauma. It's their past. And we can't protect somebody from the journey that they have with God. We can't help them see the light. This is one of the most unfortunate aspects of being a human being on a spiritual path, is that it's not up to us. It's like there's only things that we can do to support, and if you build it, they will come. Just building our cathedral or our ceremony space or our playground or our school that is under the guidance of people who are connected to their hearts, not a school that is under the guidance of policy and curriculum that is under the guidance of human constructs of thought. We have to be very careful of those. They can lead us in certain directions that can give us a particular outcome, and we can step into those with an open mind and understanding of what this is, and we can gain experience from those institutions, those constructs that benefit us, but always know that they are for our benefit. if we are paying money, if we are paying taxes, these are for our benefit. The RCMP, generally speaking, there's many institutions, in my opinion, whether it's the firefighters down in Enderby or the RCMP in the area. These are institutions that have loyal people, that have people that are doing important jobs. And of course, there are dark aspects of these institutions, but in my experience, there's generally a value in the construct that we live in today. Going back to the Wild West, that might be somebody's choice in order to be able to protect their own and not worry about a governing institution like the RCMP, and that's their prerogative. But I don't feel safe around that person. I feel safe in relation to the person who is operating from a place of, let's say, institutional construct around the common good. And this thread goes very deep, though, because when we get into the institutional constructs of governments and centralized governance, governing from a place of having responsibility and organization, bureaucratic organization, but the point, the pinnacle, the top of that peak, that institutional point of intersection that, tribally would be left to the medicine man or woman. Tribally, it would be the top would be somebody who's surrendering to who is really in charge, to the spirits, to the ancestors, to God, to Christ, or whoever that is for you, whoever you're listening to. But when we have somebody who's a human being, who's not tethered to that source, we have interference, and we have muckiness, and unfortunately, in my opinion, the way that our society has manifested in a colonized structure, we have no choice at this time, but we're working on it. And that's a big part of what this podcast is going to be about as we continue here, how we're working on it, how we're coming back to the notion of the sacred community, the sacred within us, the connection to the sacred, to the divine, and creating villages, creating communities that self-govern, but with help, and help that we want, help that people are asking for. They're not just getting despite not asking for it, the type of organization that happens from a colonized construct. And I know that there are many good people that are working within this colonized construct and doing their best, and many of them that are unaware that there is the possibility of something more aligned that doesn't repress the psychological growth of individuals, that doesn't continue to feed and promote and bolster this relationship between the father, the mother, the parent, and the child. The colonized construct, it feeds the need that we have as children to need a parent in the human form. It fosters this need. It continues to nurture this need, where we believe that we found another parent in our government, in our institution, and we remain lingering in this world, this relationship that was meant to be evolving as an adult between the adult and spirit, that was meant to be evolving in a place of trust, whether it's through the medicine person that or your connection with spirit yourself. And it depends on how old you are, but allows these stages of growth to happen, to manifest naturally and in a good way and in alignment with our higher good. The stagnancy that is created through the colonized construct is very apparent, and creates limitations, and without knowing it, creates oppression, creates deep oppression without knowing it. So who is the oppressor? I have found ways of liberating myself, and nobody stopped me. I have not been kept from doing that. And so I no longer see the constructs of this society of institutions. I no longer see those as oppressive, because I can do whatever I want. The moment I can't physically, that they get in my way physically, that will be physically oppressive and actually oppressive. Until then, my journey of self-discovery and stepping into rites of passage and ways of evolving in a natural way through the stages of life as they were meant to be, as they've evolved over thousands of years, and as our ancestors were aligned with and understood as the messages from the other side came through, but they don't come through anymore. There are reasons for that, and I'm going to stop before I get into those, because there's many, many things to delve into. This is a very beautiful and important conversation. I look forward to continuing it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. This is Mark A. Lewis, Sacred Village Podcast, All My Relations.
I lay my head down.
Check out my lovely partner's music, Christina Jessen, at ChristinaJessen.com. And there's also more information on what we're doing. We're doing a land project up here, traditional land development with a community intention. And if you're interested in any of the retreats that we're a part of and part of organizing, you can find all that information at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Have a wonderful day.
Floated down and down like a feather. I floated down and down, and I floated down and down like a feather. I floated